Welcome to Wedding Photography Weekly, the show where I answer all of your questions from the members group on Facebook. There is a table of contents down below here, so if you want to jump around, you can. Otherwise, just maybe put this video on and put it in another window and go about your workday. Taylor Jackson.
Shooting 67 weddings last year.
Taylor Jackson, welcome.
So Taylor, you are well known in this community. You're an amazing photographer.
Welcome to today's wedding photography guided meditation. You are here now. I am here now. We are here now in this journey that we call wedding photography. I had Taco Bell for lunch today. 2 Taco Supreme, 1 fire sauce on each taco. In Canada, they give fries instead of nachos. It's a bit strange, but I'm okay with it.
Welcome to Wedding Photography Weekly, the weekly show where I answer all of your questions from the members group on Facebook. If you want to submit a question, you have to be a member of the site. And then every week I'll post a topic in the members only Facebook group. Also in the members only Facebook group this week, closing on Monday, is the $100 image challenge, and it is a travel image challenge. So if you have taken a travel photo that you like, you can go over to that topic, put it in there. And the way the challenge goes, pretty simple. You post on the topic the images that get the most number of likes. You can vote as many times as you want. Make it to the second round. The second round is posted as a gallery and everyone votes again. Then the winner, the winning image, the winning travel image this week is going to win $100, and I'll send that to you PayPal. It's US currency, so if you're anywhere else in the world, you probably get some bonus dollars on that, unless you're in the UK, or I guess maybe that initial statement is inaccurate. So maybe the most exciting gear year in quite some time for wedding photographers, specifically the Nikon Z5 and the Canon R6 are pretty much slated to come out on the same day, and also weddings. The Elopement Course just came out, so you may or may not know that I generated a significant number, 57 leads for elopement. So I actually have a lot of weddings coming up and a lot of small weddings, which means I'm going to be able to test these cameras a lot in a variety of situations at different wedding days. So I'm going to be purchasing both of these cameras and running them kind of as, I guess, usually I shoot 2 camera bodies. I'm going to continue with that. One is likely going to be the Nikon Z5 and one is going to be the Canon R6 for a little while. And I'm hopefully going to do as much as I can to get that info out there for you guys so you can make the right decision. I am obviously a Nikon shooter and I'm very excited about the Nikon Z5. I've used the Z6 a lot. My one issue specifically for weddings was that it doesn't do backup to a second card. And the XQD cards, quite honestly, are really phenomenal. It's very, very unlikely. It's a very small chance that you'll ever experience any sort of card failure in one, but that chance still does exist, and I just feel a lot better with 2 card slots. The other thing I think too, I guess the main way that these 2 cameras are different is that one, Canon is going very hard into that 1.2 glass, the 28 to 70 f2, which is it's large, it's very, very heavy, but they've been creating some really interesting pro-level glass, whereas Nikon is creating really technically great glass, but they're focusing a little bit more on the f1.8 side of things, which means, one, it is so much less heavy, but also that you get maybe a little more depth of field. So if you're a depth of field junkie and you want that 1.2, you might have to wait a little bit on the Nikon side of things. That said, from what we experienced, we traveled with the Z6 for a couple of months, and I pretty much picked it up on release day. Didn't really 100% love it for a while. Autofocus had some significant issues in the beginning, as well as just like random things that only apparently I ever experienced, like my camera would just lock up nonstop. Firmware seems to have fixed all of that, and the new, I guess 3.0 was kind of the big step. Now I think it's on 3.12. So if you're a Z6 user and you haven't updated yet, update your firmware again. But overall, we were very happy with the camera once it got to that level 3.0 firmware. So I'm excited for the Z series to continue, and I'm excited, even if they just give me a 50 1.2 prime, I feel like that will make me happy enough for the next couple of years. And then on the Canon side of things, I'm actually a little bit curious about the old 50 1.2. It's a lens that I have really loved for quite some time, but never been able to shoot because I'm primarily a Nikon shooter. So I'm likely excited to use that through an adapter. We'll see. I might go with the actual RF 1.2, but it's expensive, heavy, and in my opinion, maybe even too sharp for what I need. That as a wedding shooter, maybe this is a weird, controversial opinion. I'll back this up eventually in a future video, but I almost don't want the over sharpness. I don't want the technically like 100% amazing images that a lens like that is likely going to produce. I want a sense of softness to my images because I'm there on a wedding day and I kind of want that. Not to say out of focus, not to say that there's no detail and that like everything needs to be in focus, but I think that there's kind of multiple levels to that. If you look at Leica cinema glass, like the really, really crazy expensive ones, the way those lenses market themselves is that there is a sense of softness to the image. I'll explain more of my thought process on this with some examples because I think it's very difficult to just kind of talk about. It's like yeah, I love the medium format look. What does that look like? It's the medium format look. Explain it. That's kind of the general vibe that I get when I hear people talk about certain looks or the Leica look and feel. I want to figure out how to actually quantify that, or at least like give specific examples of it. I think that that's important. And yeah, so more on that to come. Elopement Course is now officially up. So if you are a wedding photographer and you want to generate a lot of work right now, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, like I am, I'm in Canada here, there is going to be a lot of work before it becomes too cold to shoot weddings or becomes kind of December-ish. Until then, if you get a jump on everything that's in this course right now, you'll be able to generate a significant number of weddings in September, October, and November. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you're just going into summer, you kind of have a little bit of lead time to get this together to put out there in the world. And it's really all about loud motorcycles. It's not about loud motorcycles. It's really all about everything that's kind of happened this year and the way that weddings have changed from my usual large weddings to very, some people call them micro weddings. Elopements was, I guess, their name a year or so ago. Whatever it is, I'm going to teach you as much as I know about booking as many as you can and on-demand booking them as well. Like, I feel like it's important for us to be able to actually go out and generate leads and to generate revenue rather than sitting and waiting for it to come to us. That again was something that I struggled with a lot when I was first getting started, was that I thought that there was this element of, I'm just gonna put stuff out in the world and like hopefully people email me, and then no one emailed me. So you go out there, you get the leads, you generate, and in the course comes with my pricing template. So everything that I'm doing, obviously modify it to suit you, as well as my email templates, how I'm communicating with people, the website template. So you come over to a landing page whenever you're coming into this I guess advertisement that I put together. So you're coming into that, and then I'm also giving you the Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and you're free to copy whatever you want from all of that. So that's over there, Elopement Course. There's a link in the description below if you're interested. And other than that, we'll get to the questions in a moment here. Got a new bag. This is the Peak Design Everyday Messenger. The new version of it, you might have seen my gear video go up a couple of days ago, and that was the old version of this bag. So far in my review, there are some things that I definitely like better about the newer version of the bag. I'm going to do a proper review about it. But as of right now, if you have a lead on a cheaper version of the old bag, I might recommend that. This bag specifically is deeper. So it feels deeper than my other one. My other one, like when I put a camera in it, it seemed like it was right there, ready to go. Now it feels like it's almost too deep. But I'll play around with it more. I'll use it at a couple wedding days. I feel like that's maybe one way that my YouTube channel has improved over the years, is that in the beginning I would definitely get a piece of gear and I would want to be the first one to review it on YouTube, and I would do everything that I could to have that review out day one. And I realized that this is incorrect. An incorrect way to review product. That you actually have to spend time with things, and I feel like we did the Z6 reviews correct, that we spent proper time with it before actually putting that out. So I'm gonna do the same with this bag. Obviously, much less price point than a camera, but at the same time, if you might prefer the version 2 of the bag, you might as well save some money and get something that actually suits your workflow better. Let's get to the questions. If you want to submit a question, come on over to our members group on Facebook. You have to be a member, but you can come in there, and then every week I post this topic. You can post your questions below. First question, Justine asks, in the past when I've tried to do video on my camera, the video won't stay focused on the subject. An example would be if they're walking towards me. How do I fix this? This would entirely depend on what camera you're using. There are, I would say, autofocus limitations in pretty much all video. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna revise that statement. I'm gonna say that the newer Canon firmware, and then obviously Sony has just been amazing at autofocus forever now. If you're using a Sony camera or one of the newer Canon cameras, likely will track really well with you. If you're using any sort of Nikon camera, it'll do okay. If you're using Nikon digital SLR that's not the D780, it's going to do a very poor job, and I wouldn't even recommend using autofocus at all on an older Nikon camera than that. In video specifically, not in photos. Photos, it's all great. So it kind of comes down to that. I would say if you're in autofocus continuous and if you have face tracking where you're able to select the point that you want to track, it might actually be a technical limitation of the camera. That is one of the advances, I would say, over the past couple of years, and one of the reasons to actually upgrade gear. I know I put out a video this week that was like, hey, if you don't upgrade your gear unless you need to. If you're shooting video, I think that is one of the main reasons too, that the video advances are pretty significant these past couple of years. And I'm excited to see where that goes, especially with the new Sony a7S III. And all the technology that's kind of at that level is now going to drip down into the A7 IV potentially, or A7R5. I don't know if they would do that again. I feel like they just did that last year. So probably an A7 IV is likely the next to be released, or maybe an A9 Mark III or whatever it might be. I'm interested to see what that A7 IV is, because it's going to be likely a competitor with the Canon R6 and with the Z5, the Nikon Z5. So I'm curious about that. I'll also run, obviously, both those tests. I'm going to say the R6 Canon, from what I've used the R and the RP quite extensively. And I'm going to say they're already at a point that I'd be very happy to use them, and they track focus very, very well. Any Sony cameras, Nikon, Z5, I don't know, stay tuned. Next question. John says, good to see you work with the APS-C camera. Do you miss the full frame look? Or did the compact format have benefits that made up for? So John's mentioning the Fuji X-T4 video that came out on Wednesday, I guess now. And the my basic takeaway was, I think that I was limited with what I was doing. So I was second shooter for Lindsay, which meant that if Lindsay was on her 7200, I didn't really want to step into that also using the same focal range, which would have been the 56 1.2. I think if you can use the 56 1.2 on a Fuji body, that you do get a lot of the look that I would miss from shooting a crop sensor camera. When I'm shooting the 23 1.4, if I'm really nice and close, it's great. As soon as I'm just like a little bit further away, I lose really all ability to control any sort of depth of field, just because effectively, like, kind of the math on this is that obviously an APS-C camera, you're shooting a 23, that becomes 23 times 1.5, becomes 35-ish, I think, whatever the math is. It's pretty close to 35. But effectively, you kind of also get the f-stop look as well. So if you're shooting an f1.4 lens, you're kind of getting more of, what's the math on that, like a 2.5, because you're multiplying it by 1.5 as well. So you're kind of getting like that f2 look. So if you're shooting 1.4, your image, the way that it crops in, I'm sure somebody goes into more detail, or somebody like Gerald Undone will just completely rip me apart for this comment. But basically, the look that I'm getting is kind of like at that distance from 1.5 times the f-stop as well. And I found that was pretty difficult for me as far as just creating depth and three-dimensionality images. I think that I would have to change up the way that I shoot a little bit, and I would also have to be relying on that 56 1.2 a lot more. I think with that, I'd be pretty happy overall. Autofocus wise, I left it a little bit more on the actual like eye and face detect than I normally would. I think that I would probably also revise that, and I would just be on single point as well, and I would just like lock on to wherever that single point is and let that be my spot. So that I think would be what I would do. Overall, I don't think I would be switching entirely to Fuji for wedding days. I think that the Z5 and the R6 are probably the two that I would recommend the most going into kind of this fall season. So while I do love Fuji and it could do a great job for sure, I would probably be recommending the Z5 R6 slightly above it. If you're looking for that small kit, then by all means, the X-T4 is amazing. If you don't need video, just look at the X-T3. The X-T3 also does fantastic video, actually. I should disclaimer with that. It just doesn't have in-body stabilization, which I use a lot when I'm doing video, and especially because not a lot of the lenses for Fuji are stabilized. I'm filming this on the X-T4 actually, and this is the kit lens. And the kit lens does come with stabilization, so maybe if you're making travel films, you could definitely get away with an X-T3 and save that money. All right, next question. Justin asks, when doing street photography for portfolio building, is it ethically, legally okay to post these shots online and possibly in advertisements? I know probably varies from country to country. I'm in Canada. Should I have release forms going around for such shoots? Don't want to have any confrontations. So the good thing would obviously be to ask the person in Canada. I know there's certain countries, Germany for instance has some very strict rules on this. I think Canada is a lot more lenient. So if you're just kind of doing street photography in public places from also public land, there's actually, it might have been Sean Tucker made a video about the legality of street photography, and he's based in near London, I think, in the UK. And he talked about essentially when you think you're on public property, you're rarely on public property. So make sure that you're at least kind of within the bounds of that. I feel like there's also a moral compass on this as well. So don't just barge into things. One of my street photography videos, I went into casinos in Las Vegas and shot photos. Probably don't do that if you're advertising for it. I didn't actually, because of that, I didn't actually monetize the video. I didn't enable ads on YouTube because of that, because I thought that it was kind of that moral gray weird area. Theoretically, you should be asking people for releases if you're using them in commercial advertising. On social media, I feel like it's a very gray area and it's still kind of being decided. But I would suspect you'd be fine. Just know that if somebody complains, just pull that. You have to be ready to remove that image at any moment, really. All right, Lee asks, spots are showing up on long exposures. I assume they're dust on the sensor. Can you explain, or how often do you clean yours, and what do you use, please? So I use my good friends here at BJ Photo Waterloo. If you're looking for a camera, not sponsored, but they're great family. They usually give me just little. I'll put a link maybe. I'll put it up on the screen what it is, and you can go find it. It's basically just like a little squeegee guy. I use those on my mirrorless cameras, so my Nikon Z5 or Z6 whenever we were traveling. The Z series, I will say, gets way more sensor dust than any camera that I've ever used in my lifetime, basically. And I have those with me when I'm out shooting that, because if I'm doing longer exposures or if I'm bringing the f-stop down to something like f8, that those spots become very, very visible, and even on the back of the LCD, which means that they are gigantic when you actually get them onto a computer. So I have one of those little squeegee guys there for that. And I'm sure somebody can teach you how to the correct way to swab your sensor or to clean your sensor like that. But I simply just try to not put too much pressure and just keep it across and just kind of drag it across, and then go back and do it one more time. That's usually it. Maybe I should watch a video on that, but there's going to be somebody on YouTube that does that the most correct way possible. But also know that if it seems like it's an insane process to do, that there's probably an easier way to do it, and you really might be able to get 98% of the results with no damage at all to your camera, which is the most important part when you're cleaning your sensors, in a much easier way, I think. Maybe I'll do a video about this eventually. I'll figure out who's the best at cleaning sensors, and I'll ask them. All right, next question. Cody asks, what brand of shoe did you recommend that look like dress shoes but feel like running shoes? You're in Canada, so you can go. It's on SoftMock. I'll put the product, the picture right here. Unless I forgot. I hope I didn't forget. And my go-to attire for weddings, do you dress more casual for engagement shoots? For engagement shoots, I'm kind of good with whatever. I feel like it's kind of like golf course rules almost. If I did an engagement shoot in this collared shirt, I'd be quite happy with it. Maybe I wouldn't wear camouflage pants. I would maybe put on some jeans or some nicer shorts and just nice shoes. If you're going somewhere, or if you know that the couple is becoming significantly dressed up for the engagement session, like if they're doing full gowns and they're bringing a makeup team with them and whatnot, in that case, maybe I would do dress pants and dress shirt and treat it a little bit more like a wedding. On an actual wedding day, I'm usually just in just a button-up. I don't do a tie or anything unless, again, it's a wedding that would require that. And then in that case, usually I do a bow tie because I find it gets less in the way of everything. And then just regular pants and the shoes that were on the screen there. Hendrik asks, why is almost every wedding photographer, myself included, using a combination of different prime lenses? Wouldn't it be much easier to have two zoom lenses and have everything covered from 24 to 200? Yeah, theoretically. So my stance with primes versus zooms, to briefly touch on it here, is that I like to have the limitations of it. I also like aesthetically, I really love the look of really shallow depth of field, and I like to have that as a tool on wedding days specifically, because for instance, you walk into a room like this, that right now this is nice and clean, but if you pan this way, there's a bunch of stuff. And if I was trying to do getting ready photos in here, I had I didn't want to go around and actually collect everything and clean the entire room. If I could just shoot everything on my 85 at 1.4, I can make that background pretty much at least disappear as far as the distracting elements of it. So I like it for that. I also like the size and the weight factor, that I would much rather carry around that 85 rather than something like a 24-70 and a 70-200. That would be really heavy. For ceremonies, I'll use a 70-200 because I think it's a necessary thing, at least regular weddings. This year is obviously a little bit different. I can definitely get by with the 85, but I feel like I'm very happy with either a 24 or a 35 and my 85. And I don't know, they just kind of work for me. I like the look of it, and I have become very familiar with all of those lenses, so I feel like that's also an important element as well. The more gear you kind of start to add, if you have the choices of 24 to 200, I feel like you're going to do all kind of micro adjustments within that, and you're always going to be second guessing, like, oh, is this shot at 24 better, or is this at 28 better? I almost like the fact that I'm very limited to the fact that, like, hey, this is the photo, and this is the photo at 85, and this is the one at 24. I kind of like that, but overall, I would say it's probably a weight and gear thing in the beginning, and then also for my couples that are not used to being in front of a camera, to walk up to them with a 24-70 on one arm and a 70-200 on the other arm, or hold fast straps or whatever it might be, is also a little bit intimidating overall. Nathan asks, specifically video related, manual focus or AFF with face/subject lock. I'm still a lot of manual focus, I would say. I use AFC or AFS rather, so autofocus, like that I just touch on it and just goes to that point and stops. I use that a lot, or I half press if I'm trying to track somebody. Usually pretty much every shot that I do, I would say never really requires too much as far as focus pulling or pushing, that it really is just kind of that like straight out, like, okay, this is the shot here. That I'm essentially recreating photos in video mode. So it was the way that my hybrid videos are in my brain, at least, is that if I am doing a blog post on a wedding, I want all of those moments that I'm putting in the blog post in a video. And they don't really need to move much within that I can get a lot from, one, the slow motion element and being able to see kind of in between the moments that happened, as well as just being able to see like eyes clearly moving and actual reactions in real time or slower than real time. So I'm fine to keep my shots as simple as possible. You could definitely, like if you have a gimbal and you want to get those follow shots, I would say with the Z6, you could probably, it might take you one or two attempts to get it, but I think that you definitely could do it. Otherwise, all like Canon or Sony, as I spoke to earlier in this video, can do that pretty easily, I would say. Fuji as well is pretty good. I would say Nikon's almost there, that it's so close. So maybe Z5 new firmware, maybe something will make it a little bit easier. But as far as tracking shots go, they'll do it most of the time, but sometimes it'll just like decide that it just doesn't want to. Nelly asks, thought process, quantity of photos delivered versus time booked. So I don't ever really tell anyone exactly how many images they're going to be receiving from either a wedding day or an engagement session. I kind of just structure it in a way that whatever ends up looking good, I'll give to them, that I'm not going to hold anything back because I don't know, like that, I'm like, oh, you only got 100 images. Family sessions and headshot sessions are a little bit different because I do some more advanced retouching on those. But for the most part, wedding day and engagement sessions, it really is kind of whatever's good. I kind of ballpark between, I would say 600 to 800 images if I'm there for an 8-hour wedding day. And most people are pretty happy with that. And those images do cover kind of everything that I would need covered on a wedding day. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I mentioned, and people are pretty happy overall to hear that. And no one's ever asked for more photos, at least I can remember in a very, very long time. Engagement sessions is anywhere between, I would say, 45 images to 100 for about an hour of coverage. And that also depends on if we do a thing. If we just go for a walk in a park, it's going to be maybe closer to that 45. But if we cook spaghetti in their house and like do a bunch of stuff and it's very visually interesting, I'll start including more shots of kind of what we're doing as well and more of that process. But that's kind of up to the couple, whatever they would like. Ryan asks, thoughts on live streaming weddings? I'm thinking keeping it easy, one angle, but I'm not sure the most optimal way to capture audio is. What would be your basic theoretical setup, and would it include contingencies? So the easiest way, I would say, would honestly be to go iPad, as strange as it is, or potentially iPhone as well. Obviously, if it's your actual phone, maybe maybe find another one to use. The reason for that specifically, I guess, so if it was your actual iPhone, you have the backup. The main struggle that you'll probably find is Wi-Fi connectivity. So if you have Wi-Fi and you know that you can get the phone or the iPad or whatever it might be nice and close, I feel like that's a very reasonable option. If you want to go with digital SLR, it will add an extra layer of kind of things that can go wrong. Actually, I think Nikon may be excluded. I think Canon, Fuji, Sony, they all released like desktop versions of webcam software. I think Nikon released it, but only for Windows at this point. So if you have a Windows laptop, you can do that. But the other way would be to shoot through that through USB, or if you, I forget what they're called, but the little HDMI adapter, you can also do that out of your camera, HDMI into USB, through that into your computer, and then from your computer broadcasting out. That would be a more professional looking version, but I think if you're just one person, it's going to be very difficult to set up and troubleshoot anything that could go wrong with that. And then beyond that, to make sure you have some sort of backup Wi-Fi system, like a Wi-Fi puck or something, or a 3G or LTE Wi-Fi puck, so that you can connect to it and you can actually transmit through that. The less you can rely on a venue to have Wi-Fi, the better, because that's going to be the biggest struggle. With that system, so going into a computer, you can now run a wireless microphone up to your camera if you want, and run that, and then all of that goes into the actual computer, so you can live stream out of there. I've done a number of videos, I think, back at the beginning, maybe of March, when everything had to move kind of online really quickly. I did a lot of videos with that setup, and I really liked it. And I had a wireless Bluetooth microphone on me. I would say if you can do that, if you can get a proper like Sennheiser wireless kit, it would be awesome. So you're actually able to, I don't know, transmit, but also on like a news broadcast level rather than just the road, I guess, like whatever it's not Wi-Fi, it's not Bluetooth, it's actual radio frequency, but it seems to break up and reset and not be connected as much as I would want it to. The Sennheiser packs, the ones that are for proper production, for proper media, they will pretty much always work unless you're in a very strange environment that has a lot of other signals around that maybe you'll see some interference. But otherwise, I would say go with one of those if you want to go kind of next level to it. You can also kind of do both. I would say that if you are setting up a live stream, to even set up a digital SLR and to record that live stream from roughly the same angle, but also on good quality video, and include that maybe as a bonus extra for them as well. So those would be my advices, but iPad, definitely keeping it as easy as it could possibly be, or iPhone as well. And that I guess also keeps in mind that you have to be able to get close enough to actually hear whoever is speaking to the camera and to hear vows and whatnot. Otherwise, wireless kit would be nice, or bigger wedding, wireless kit would be good as well. Editor Taylor here. I have missed a question. I missed Lucas Martin's question. Do you go to a venue to check ahead of time if you've never been there before? And have you ever had a problem looking around by owners? A long time ago, I did used to go to venues to make sure that, one, I just kind of wanted to alleviate some sort of anxiety. So if it will help your anxiety level, 100% I recommend go take the drive and go look around the venue so you can scout it. I would say scout it roughly at the same time that you're going to be actually doing the photos, and probably on a sunny day, because if it's a cloudy day, everything works. If it's a sunny day, you're going to be a little bit more limited. I've never had a problem with any venue owners kicking me out. I feel like if you just say why you're there, it won't be a problem at all. That said, some people might be a little bit weird if it is private property, if it's maybe somebody's house or whatever that they're using as a venue. So in that case, if it looks like it might be one of those, maybe give them a call ahead to be like, hey, do you mind if I come through like Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 to have a look? I'm photographing a wedding there in a couple of weeks from now. And you can also use that as an excuse to actually talk to the venue owner as well. So maybe it might be smart to give them a heads up if you want to start that vendor relationship and potentially become a preferred vendor at that spot. So back to the studio. Christine asks, I'm having trouble getting in with local wedding venues. I've offered to capture their location, set up host-styled shoots, all for no cost, in hopes that I could get on the preferred vendor list, but I've had no luck. I've been diligent these past 15 to 24 months and feeling super discouraged. Yesterday, a local venue that I offered to shoot their new rooms hosted an open house for local vendors, and I wasn't invited. Commented on their IG story, and they read it and didn't respond. Is this normal? I've been in the industry 5 years now and getting nowhere. Any tips? Feel like I'm being excluded from the cool kids table. That's just crappy of a venue to do, especially to read something and not respond. So that venue specifically, there might be something going on behind the scenes that you might not know. It might be a competitive photographer that's running their social media or something like that, which from time to time kind of does happen. It's a bit weird. Social dynamics, always a bit weird. I would say just by continuing to reach out to new venues and maybe going outside of what your local area is, and maybe you have to drive a little bit, but if you have to drive a little bit, and specifically for venues that I know here that are out of the city, they are a lot more welcoming to having people create marketing and good content for them because they don't have as much demand and they're not getting messaged by as many photographers. But I would say that if there's any of the venues that you've shot a wedding at already and you have portfolio to show from that place, that would be kind of the way that I would open that conversation. Like, hey, here's a gallery from last year if you guys want to post anything. Also would love to collaborate on like a future project and actually like give them some dates and be like, hey, I'm thinking like first week of September, would love to do something like this and whatever style shoot you want to do, make it as specific as possible so they can kind of say yes or no to that. But I would maybe say like move on from that specific venue and start targeting a few others and see what your responses are. Because even if you were to get in with a venue like the one you mentioned, it seems like they already have a pretty stacked preferred vendor list, and it's going to be very difficult for you to even if you do get on the list, you're not going to be the first one or maybe the second that they recommend. I've found that there is incredible value in being the one that the actual salesperson is recommending rather than just being on the list at all. There obviously is value to being on the preferred list, as well as like kind of the social credibility and social proof that you can put on your website. But I would say the biggest way that I get referred is from when I'm on the list, but I'm also the person that the person in the sales meeting is telling the couple that like, hey, you should check out Taylor because he's really great. So I would say reach out to some different venues and see who's a little bit more responsive than them. Next question, Josh says, do you randomize your elopement giveaway winners or are you basing, so this is going to the elopement course. For the elopement giveaway, so the full detail structure is in the course. For the actual giveaways, you can do random selection. I think it also becomes local lottery laws as well, that some places it has to be a random, no purchase necessary. Some places require a skill testing question, so you have to have like, what's 2 + 2 equal on your page to legally make it work. I would say it's kind of however you want to take it. That if you want to randomize it, I think that's a good thing to live stream and randomize it. I think adds even more credibility and trust to you as a business owner. So I would say maybe do it that way. And that's also assuming that they're all weddings that or elopements that all kind of cost you the same amount of time, that if there's a few that you're going to have to spend an entire day driving 4 hours away or something like that, then maybe they get excluded off of that list. And I don't know, just make it as easy on yourself as you kind of can. But I think by doing a live stream giveaway, I think that you could probably get a lot of people. If you did that on Instagram, you could probably get every single person that submitted to actually follow you on Instagram to watch that live and say like 8 p.m. on Tuesday or whatever that you're doing this live. I think that might be a good marketing strategy for it. Next question. Eric says, what are some good resources for somebody that wants to learn more of the basics of photography but is not technically oriented? I would say that YouTube is probably the best place. The hard thing on YouTube is sifting through. So as somebody that creates content on YouTube, YouTube really heavily prioritizes technical content. So if I do a gear review, they're going to show that to everyone. If I do a video on like how to use aperture, they're going to show it to nobody unless you're actively searching for those specific things. So I would say just dig a little bit deeper on YouTube. And I'm certain that there's a few people that have done some really great beginner level style courses that can go into all the basics on a level that I might not even if I'm teaching it, because they're likely people that have taught a lot of beginner photography classes and they have more experience kind of in that. So I would say that's probably the way that I would go about it. I can't think of any specific paid courses or anything that I would probably buy. I would start with YouTube and I would figure out when you learn something and that unlocks another thing that you have to learn, I feel like I would go from topic to topic and kind of bounce around that way. Ryan asks, what process did you employ to identify if your creative style has appealed to your customer base? Sometimes I worry work isn't what brides in my area are looking for, but I'm in a feedback loop of understanding this dynamic. So I think my creative style, I didn't really focus too hard for a very, very long time. I process my images in a way, and I always have, that they are as timeless as they can be, which means I'm not really going into too many like really hard trends. Like I'm not, I guess you've probably seen my photos, but I'm not desaturating greens and making skin tones gray, that I am keeping things warm and kind of happy and generally nice. Sometimes this borders for me on looking like an early 2000s romantic comedy, which I don't like, and that's why I add grain a little bit at the time to kind of like, it feels like it kind of levels that out a little bit. I would say that if you're creating work that's, this is also, I guess, maybe unpopular advice, but to see what everyone locally is doing and to see the people that are actually out working, rather than just setting up like portfolio shoots and paying money to kind of make their portfolio. If you're looking at the people that are out there shooting a lot of weddings, that there are elements maybe from their style, or at least maybe they give you kind of like bounds of like, I should create a visual style between here and here, rather than going completely outside of the box. That in the past, and actually even currently, I've seen a lot of people that have created work that's wildly out of the box that do become very popular and get booked a lot. But I think it is a riskier process. And I know maybe this goes against like all of our creative brains as photographers, but I think it really is important to stay kind of within at least the box of what people would expect to see. Looking at wedding blogs and not to completely make your style like super generic, but looking at wedding blogs will also kind of give you a good base for that. And then also visually to keep adding to my brain every day. I follow a lot of kind of the higher end designers on Instagram as well, so that whenever I'm scrolling through my feed, I'm at least getting hit by some really good visual style by them, because one, the items that are usually in the photographs are visually incredible, and then also the photography is kind of next level when it comes to things. And as you talked about being that feedback loop, I feel like it's important to kind of break out of that. And I think by breaking to just even as simple as that, like fashion, or if you're maybe a little bit more on the street photography side of things, following maybe some Instagram accounts that do kind of a culmination of that, like Magnum Photographers, which I'm sure if you're a street photographer, you already follow them. But following a lot of accounts like that, I feel like also kind of give you that bounds and that constant, like, just kind of kick to your creativity, while maintaining within something that's purchasable. At the end of the day, we're business owners and we have to create a product that people want to buy. But I would say as long as you're kind of within those bounds and you look like a wedding photography company, you're going to see some pretty good success. So hopefully that was helpful. Daniel asks, if you're starting your business from scratch with all the knowledge you have now, what would you do differently? And what are the best business decisions you've taken? So since you're a member, go to the Book More Weddings 2020 course, which came out before all of this world happened. But that's essentially, I would say, my start to finish guide on everything that I would do starting from scratch again. I would say that that's most of the pieces, and I talk a lot about all the stuff that I screwed up when I was first getting started. So Book More Weddings 2020, it's included in the membership, so you can just go watch that and go through whatever videos you think are the most interesting right now. But I can answer that. I'm going to say it's like a 3-4 hour course total. So I think that there's a lot more content than I can answer today, but I think it is important. All right. Malin, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Husband and wife team. Husband trained in film, but does not like to use presets on photos. Edits very minimal, like to honor. I understand that. Moved to Canada from the Pacific and establishing a new business here, finding lots of people have presets on photos. Would you cater to the purist or younger gen? How can you do this without confusing the audience? And can't afford not to cater to one type of audience yet, so this is very divided. So how do you pull this off seamlessly? Any advice? So I would say, I believe that there is, or maybe if there's not a significant demand for it, I feel like we've kind of already started to see this happen on YouTube, where all of a sudden film cameras are just insanely popular all of a sudden. And I'm sure all the old film folks, like your husband, for instance, not to call him an old film folk, but somebody that's used film extensively, they're probably laughing at this, all these kids finding all these like new cameras that are not new to them at all. So I think that the industry is going to shift back into that film look over time. So I think if anything, he is potentially slightly ahead of the trend. I know in maybe even 2007, 2008, 2009, guys like Jose Villa were really keeping it true to film, and anything that he was shooting digital was with a purpose to be shot digital for a reason. His processing was very much like he would send his photos to the lab, they would come back, and he would, rather than editing anything, which I think is amazing, you just like select, it's like, okay, I want that photo, I don't want that one, I want that one, I don't want that one, with scans on a computer, not, maybe, I don't know what he did. But I would suspect that essentially all the presets are based off of film styles, and if they're not, I feel like they're not going to last kind of the test of time. I feel like the test of time really is what your husband's already doing, and I feel like by creating something in that color palette with those tones, that it really does last a long, long time. So I think there's value in it. I think that you should make it part of your marketing as well, and to talk about why you shoot this way and why I don't know why film's actually important to the wedding day. I think that will really connect heavily with some people, and I think that it really will hook them and have them hire you for exactly who you are, which I think is also very important. So you're not like tricking them into be like, hey, surprise, we shoot film. That if you're bringing somebody in that is really passionate about that, they're going to become a huge advocate for you. I think that there is some sort of cool factor, and this is maybe both a positive and a negative at the same time, that people do really want to just be like, yeah, we hired this like person that shoots film for our wedding, that people will sell their friends like that. So it's positive in the sense that they're going to tell people about you and they're going to be passionate about it, but maybe there's a negative in the sense that the medium shouldn't really have that much of an impact on why they purchase, but I do believe that people will purchase on that. So I would say if there's no one else that's like a good film shooter in the local area or that is marketing based on this, I would maybe suggest bringing that at least as a small element, if not a large element. If you see good response and you see a lot of people very interested in this, it might make sense to roll into more of a core piece of kind of what you talk about in your promotional material. But I would say overall, it's something that a lot of people are going to be looking for, and it does have that cool factor, and we're watching that blow up over this year on YouTube already. So next question, Travis asks, again, if Trump wins re-election, can I move to Canada and work for you? Sure. We only have one room though, so it'll be a small environment. But yeah, we'll see. Well, I guess the border has to open too, so we'll see if that happens. Because actually, I haven't checked up on that recently. I just assumed that the border's still closed, but I don't know if I can come to the States yet, or if U.S. can come to Canada. I'll find out today. I think that's an important thing to know, that no one's really been like, hey, border's open. So we'll see. All right, 2 more questions here now. It's getting sunny again. These kind of go together. So Paul Giroux asks, what is your excitement level for the A7S III on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm very excited for that camera. I'm, as a video creator, very excited for it. I'm curious to see how dang good that 1080 looks out of that camera, because I don't really shoot 4K. It does some incredible things 4K, but when you're using a camera that's that powerful to create HD footage, it really does kind of go next level. So I'm the most excited about that. One of the things that the R6 kind of left out in order to push people to the R5 was that the codecs and the way they encode the videos might not be quite nearly as good, if even kind of in the same playing field when you start to get into the technical, as the A7S III. That was one of the things that they watered out in order to make the R5 more desirable. The Z5 I'm also very interested in as well. Autofocus wise, it's obviously not going to be anywhere near what the A7S III is going to be able to do. And then Ryan Vance, kind of, I'm going to combine these as one kind of answer. Can you spec out your perfect hybrid shooter camera? I would say my perfect hybrid shooter camera kind of involves elements from all 3 of those companies that I just mentioned. Fuji as well, like the X-T4 is really great for hybrid coverage. You can switch very quickly. There's a nice little physical dial on your front finger. It's a nice experience. To spec out my more favorite hybrid camera, it would be one that would have a very fast card slot, or the A7S III also has a very fast buffer as well, at least in kind of early testing. Haven't tested one myself yet, but it looks like it's very fast through the new card slots. I would say XQD card slot or equivalency would be great as a first card, as well as having dual backup. So one of the things that the Sony A7S III is going to do is that when you create a video file, it writes to both cards. Nikon, Canon, maybe correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but they only shoot to one card as a main card. Your photos go to both, but videos only go to one. So if I'm shooting on something like the Nikon Z5, and I have 2 SD cards in there, I'm very kind of nervous to have all of that data just on a single SD card. Again, proper workflow, you should be loading that out from USB-C into your computer rather than pulling the cards out. Cards are ever gonna fail. It's usually putting them in, pulling them out. So I would say having a crazy fast buffer is obviously key. Nikon, the D7 80, the Nikon D850 as well. The D850 I'm going to say is even faster than the 780 as far as buffer speed goes, that I can just take a bunch of photos, switch to video, that I never have to worry about that delay. A few other cameras in the past have had struggles like that. The A7 III was one of those that it was like, you guys made the perfect camera, and then because hybrid shooters of this style are such a limited market, there's no way they're really designing cameras for the 300 of us that exist. But it seems like they're going that way, so that's good. I think beyond that, the aspects that I like from the Z5 is the non-articulating screen for wedding day. So I like the flip screen for wedding day. I don't need to do the full. It's almost too annoying to like pull out if I just want to tilt like this, that I have to go out and around in order to get to that space. Whereas with Nikon, I can just kind of flip it. So I like that for a wedding day. As a video creator, I need that front-facing screen, so that's why I'm also getting the R6. From the R6, I really do like that Canon has put all of their resources into creating things for the R series. So I'm excited to see all the lenses that they release over time. So I would say that as far as lenses go, I'm pretty excited about those because they really do have that hard focus on making those f1.2 lenses. And I don't suspect that Nikon's going to be making a whole lot of them over the next little bit. It's kind of obvious where their market kind of is right now, and they're building specifically for that 1.8 crowd. Easy to travel with, easy to carry, a little bit easier to buy than the $4,000 or $3,000, depending on where you live, Canon R glass, like the primes. So I like that there is that availability. So that would be nice, but not 100% necessary, I wouldn't say. That said, if you're a Canon shooter, you have a catalog of lenses, R6 should be the choice for you. If you have a back catalog of Nikon lenses, the Z5 should be the one for you. And if you have a back catalog of Sony lenses, I would say the A7S III. I'm still kind of on the fence. I think for just general, like just travel, social media life, I think it'll be okay, the 12 megapixel files. But I'm really skeptical about shooting an entire wedding with it at 12 megapixels. So I don't know if I would do that. I'll test it out. I'll bring it to a wedding and I'll see. And then I think it's also a stigma thing as well, that I think Paul Giroux and I talked about this a little bit, that you can easily print a 12 megapixel file quite large. My 6.3 megapixel D5 or D50 that came out in like 2005, I've printed a 6-foot file off of that, and it looked pretty good. In today's standards, side by side with a Nikon D850 at 40 plus megapixels, you're probably going to see a little more quality in there. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are taking images to be displayed on screens, and I do believe that 12 megapixels is enough. So I'm interested in running a little bit of a test to just kind of, I guess, like show the final use case and to shoot with the final use case in mind. And I do believe that for the most part, wedding images at 12 megapixels could probably be fine, but I want to see that in real life first, and I want to see if I edit those files the way that I usually would, if they stand up well, because the A7S III is definitely the video camera, I would say, of this year. R5, a lot of mixed reviews. So yeah, I would say the Nikon, just the little flip screen, not the fully articulating one. Super fast buffer, very important. All I really need is an 85 prime and a 35 or a 24. So really any company can do that for me, I think. And then my other, on the video technical side of things, I only ever really want to shoot HD at 60 frames a second. I rarely, if ever, touch 120 frames a second. It's great and all, but for weddings specifically, I don't need it. So I feel like the Z5 for me ticks most of those boxes. It's not gonna have the autofocus of the Canon or the Sony for sure, but in video specifically, or I guess in photo as well, because now it's EVF. So that's gonna be my, I guess, test kind of going forward is, does the autofocus keep up well enough on a wedding day for me? I know that the Canon will. I'm 99% confident that the Canon will, and I'm 100% confident that the Sony will, but I'm maybe a little more hesitant on the Nikon. And I'm also curious the write speed between the cards as well. So if it has a fast enough buffer with 2 SD cards in it again, but we'll see. Time will tell. Should be 2 weeks or so, hopefully, before I have those 2 cameras in my hands and I can test them. Luca dropped in one last question here. Would you consider Nikon D610 as a second body? Yes, I absolutely would. I would say the Nikon D610 is a great camera, and I used D600 for a long time, and it was good. So yeah, definitely it works as a second body, and it also works if you need a second video body. It might only do 720p, so if you're a hybrid shooter, maybe I actually should verify this. I didn't use the 610. It was the 610 was like the fast edition, they put out the 600. They're like, oh, we screwed that up. Put out the 610. I never had any issues with my 600, but I seem to remember that I could only do 720 at 60 frames a second. So if you're a video shooter, maybe just be aware of that and to know that to shoot everything as well as you possibly can in camera if you do have to shoot a even smaller than HD file size. But if you're just photography only, it's a great camera. So yeah, that's all for today. Hope that you enjoyed. If you're interested, I've turned into a smoker all of a sudden. If you're interested in submitting questions for next week, on Tuesday, I will post a thing in the members group, and you can go to that thing and you can type your words into that thing, and then I will answer them on this video. Thanks very much, and don't forget to check out the Elopement course if you're interested, or as I mentioned, the Book More Weddings 2020 course. I released that originally just to Patreon folks, so now it is on the new members site. So if you're interested in coming over there and checking out Book More Weddings 2020, it began as a start to finish guide if you wanted to build your entire business in 2020, if you wanted to go from like absolute zero step-by-step process to having a fully booked season. And then March got in the way and things went a bit awry, but it does include all of my tips that I would have for myself if I was just getting started in wedding photography again, and the things that I would be doing. These tips may be just deferred. Actually, you know what, starting now, I feel like now is the new March of this year. I'm gonna call it that. So this right now, going into this, the next couple of months for me and looking at my calendar feels like what I would usually be looking at in maybe let's say April, that I know that I have a fully booked May, June coming up, and that's September, October right now. So deferred season, but Book More Weddings 2020 will definitely get you up and running as fast as possible. And then the new Elopements course, if you do want to generate those on-demand leads as fast as possible, because if you're Northern Hemisphere, you kind of got to do it in the next couple of weeks before it starts to get a little bit too cold out, and couples don't really want to do elopements. Specifically, that the outdoors is kind of the thing that a lot of couples feel a lot more comfortable doing an outdoor ceremony right now. They don't really want to do an indoor ceremony or even receptions. So to do that before it starts to get cold is very important, I think. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. See you again next time. Long video again. I was like, today's video is going to be like 20 minutes, and then it wasn't. So thanks for being here. Appreciate it. See you next time.